Hello, Mike.
Good afternoon, Doc.
So we're going to do a discussion of AI consoles for this video. And again, what they are, what they do, why you'd want to use them. And in this video, we'll be using Gemini for our examples.
Hmm.
So consoles are, again, a specialized application, just like agents, but this case, it's a terminal application. And so the agent would run in, for example, a PowerPoint window, but this console application, AI consoles have their own terminal that knows a lot more about the AI operations than a standard Windows terminal. So they're a specialized terminal. They have a large set of commands. For Gemini here, I've just listed some of them. There's probably 40 commands, 40 or 50 commands that a Gemini console has, and the Anthropic and ChatGPT are similar. I think a little less than Gemini's in those cases, but cover the same kinds of things.
Mhm.
They all allow you to couple using the MCP protocol, couple to other tools,
Mhm.
and so on. The console sends all text inputs to the remote LLM. So you may emit, you say, hey, I'm in a terminal, I'm going to say CD or I'm going to say LS. And that is sent to the LLM, which comes back as a command to do that.
Oh, neat.
You
Yeah. Okay.
know, well,
Mhm.
you don't want to do that
Mhm.
usually. And so, and most of them have a prompt, for Claude, it's an exclamation mark. I've forgotten what it is for Gemini, but anyway, you can tell it, no, I want you to just don't send this to the LLM, send this to the platform, to my local platform.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But so because it's a local application, it can read and write files, and uh, if you don't give it so that these files are like you say, it'll come back with a prompt and you say /MCP if that's what you want to do. But if you want to just emit a prompt to the LM while you're in the console, you just give it the prompt text. You don't have that leading slash. That's what distinguishes between a command and a prompt, a general prompt you want to send. So, and again, I can read and write from the local file system, which is great. So they act like agents without, but you don't have to provide the source code for it. You didn't write any code for it, didn't get, you just called it up. Now there's an installation process and the page on the website that we'll point to at the end will show you how to do that. But once you've done that once, you just open you go to a normal PowerShell window, for example, and just say Claude, or you say Gemini, or in this case, it's Gemini hyphen CLI.
Gotcha.
Um, and that brings up this specialized window.
But you'd say mostly consistent across the different vendors, Claude and
Yeah.
Gemini, and yeah, great. Cool. So you learn one, and you're in a good place
Yeah,
to
you learn one, you have the right mental models, you have the commands are a little different, but they all, there's a command to a help command to show the commands, and you say, oh yeah, okay, for here it's this, for there it's that. So,
great.
you know, good. The advantages, so AI console, you can read and write from files to the local file system. That's great. You don't have to write any special code. You're not writing a Python application. That's the AI, like an AI agent. All of that is baked in. So the Gemini CLI and the Claude console and the ChatGPT Codex all know how to message an LLM, and they each have their own little protocols in the terminal for doing that. Usually, it's just responding with text to a prompt, and they'll just fire it up. But if you wanna do something locally, you can do that too. So the benefit of that is it's flexible. I didn't have to write any code, and I'm not limited by the constraints that you built into the code. So for that agent we talked about in the last video, it had a very narrow domain. I mean, it was so my my prompt was very generic, just support software development, and it was
Yeah.
surprising how well it worked to
Yeah.
me. It just blew me away. I was surprised.
Mhm.
But here we don't even have to, you don't go to Claude AI or Gemini and say, build me an agent. You just call up the console and start doing your thing.
Wow.
So it's more flexible, not limited by any constraints that you packaged into the agent, and it's immediately productive. But for repetitive tasks, the agent itself may be more productive simply because um, it knows, it's focused on an activity you want to do. And so it
Yeah.
takes you right to the heart of that immediately. The console, you gotta pull it out of your head. Here's what I want to do.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So I created a couple of very simple little applications. Don't be put off by how simple these are, because they illustrate some very powerful stuff going on here.
Hmm.
So the first one is I told it to create a Rust Hello World project. Now, Rust has a tool called Cargo, and Cargo knows how to build that application, knows exactly how to do that. So in this case, the Gemini LLM just used Cargo to build the project. It was smart enough not to try to do it itself, it just used Cargo. It knew enough about the Rust ecosystem to do that.
Mhm.
So, we defined, built, and executed the whole Hello World application. And then we ran a Cargo Clippy, which is a analysis tool that checks for idiomatic code, especially, and for inefficiencies and things like that. So it was smart enough to, it knew about Cargo and it knew about Clippy, and away we went.
Hmm.
Uh, the next thing I asked it to do is to create a C++ Hello World project, and there isn't a tool that goes off and builds that. So now the LM had to build it, and it created a C++ project, and it defined CMake for file handling. I don't remember whether I told it to use CMake. If it didn't use it, then I would have gone back and revised my prompt and said, use CMake.
Yeah.
And it defined, built, and executed a C++ Hello World application. So what's important is that the LLM is smart enough, it knows about the infrastructure associated with these various different languages with Rust, C++, C Sharp, Python, and JavaScript. It knows about those.
Yeah.
And and what it'll do, and it'll come back to also, if the results are to change some file in your file system, the response from the LLM comes back with for example, file write command, not for you, but for the console to use to write out that file.
Right.
So the LM, in case of the Rust, there was no, it didn't create any file. It just gave it a command to run cargo, and it gave it the cargo and the strings necessary, the cargo prompts necessary to do what was needed.
Right.
This case, it's sending you back a token stream associated that represents the hello world .cpp, and then it sends a command to the console to write that out to the file system.
Gotcha. Sure.
So very, very powerful. It's
Yeah.
amazing how powerful it is. And once you wrap your arms around it, it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know, Uh, and if you find it not easy to use, you just go off and consult. If I'm using Gemini, I'll go off and consult Gemini dot, their chatbot, and ask it, and it'll set you straight almost right away.
What would you say, Doc, is for a seasoned developer? What are they looking at in terms of investment time to become proficient, would you say? Estimate.
Um, Probably a morning to get the first thing running, and a
Hmm,
week to get comfortable using it on your own code.
sure. That's great. Yeah,
It's about what I would guess.
great.
And that a lot of these tools get better and better as you continue to use them. We're
Yeah.
going to talk in the next video about skills, and the skills build up. You add information to the LLM as you go that focuses its attention, either expands its attention to these additional areas or narrows its attention to remove
Right.
things that you don't want it to look at.
Sure.
Really,
Yeah.
just the right sort of thing. It's a big,
Neat.
big help, I think. So,
Cool.
but the counterpoint to that is that you got to know what you're doing. You have
Yeah.
to understand how code works. You have to know how to write code. Because, and there's times when, it's less and less often, but it still hallucinates and it will still generate incorrect results. Now, it doesn't happen nearly as often as it used to. It's very rare. I would guess that maybe that only happens 2 or 3% of the time now, where it used to be 25% of the time.
So it sounds like your prompt crafting, your prompts become important in terms of getting the desired
Yes.
result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The prompt engineering is really important. The value returned is very equal to the value of the prompt that you put in. Garbage in equals garbage out, the
Yeah.
old rule.
Yeah.
And it's just an old rule applied to this new tool.
Right.
But in order to do that prompt engineering successfully, you need to know code.
Right.
And I don't think I would ever use this exclusively. There's some people who claim, hey, I'm not writing code anymore. I wouldn't do that. A, you want to keep your code skills up, and B, there's some joy in, handcrafting code. It's,
Right.
you're being creative, and it's a wonderful experience to struggle a little bit with a piece of code and see it work really well. And now the good news is that not only can you do that, but you have the chatbots to consult to speed up that process. So I think continuing to write code is important, but the amount of code that you generate might be now 60% out of your fingers, then modified through analysis and massaging with AI tools against 40% that are generated initially from the AIs and then massaged through your eyeballs and your fingers and in the IDE.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is an example of a prompt and partial response. So here I'm running in the Gemini CLI. And my here, this is the prompt, and I'm just giving it text, so it's going to treat that as a prompt, not a command. Create Hello World project in Rust, but do not run. And the reason I said do not run is that it was making errors by joining. That came back to me by joining a command with an I think it's a double ampersand, the way Bash does,
Yeah.
but
The
I'm
Unix
running in
command.
a
Yeah.
PowerShell console, so I gave an error. It would go off and fix it, but it would repeat the error every single time. And so I just subvert that by saying don't run. I just give it one thing to do, so it doesn't try to append it with a Bash appending.
Right.
Anyway, so I'll use cargo new to create the project. There it does. This is just what we said. So it tells you, so it tells you it is created, and it reads the code and verifies that it's correct. And here it's using its own read file command,
Yeah.
and I've tells you it's created it, and now I ask it to run, so I'm just sending it a run prompt,
Yeah.
and it ran it, and sure enough, down here is hello world. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So cool, cool. Love this stuff.
Really neat.
So you'll find a lot more details in this page, the consoleai.html page in my website. And again, this is a companion to, we first talked about chatbots in the first video. In the second video, we talked about agents. Here we're talking about consoles, and we're going to do a fourth presentation that focuses on AI skills.
Okay, great. Looking
So with
forward to it.
that, we'll say adieu.
Thanks, Doc. See ya.